Ever wonder why there's so much information, news, and stories about cybersecurity and cybercrime in the media these days? I mean, historically, the things that made news were all about brands and the stories of those brands. In the same sense, cybersecurity is about brand protection and the stories those involve. Cybercrime is at record levels, and most agree it takes a collaboration between both the public and the private sector to really address all of the complex aspects that are needed for people and organizations to protect their brands. Because of the complexity of cybersecurity, it's difficult for organizations to hire the talent needed, the skill sets, with the right culture fit. There's a group called cyberseek.org that is a great website. It's got an excellent heat map that shows the hundreds of thousands of jobs open and available today in the US. And you can check by geography, job title, etc., all in cybersecurity. But changing careers and advancing into cybersecurity is daunting for a lot of people. We get it. What role do you ultimately want in security? Do you want offensive? Do you want defensive? Consulting? Do you want to go into GRC? How about investigative aspects, auditing, marketing, sales? It's a wide range. Today, we've got an exclusive and rare inside opportunity to speak candidly with one of the international leaders known around the world for helping individuals break into cybersecurity. Today, we get to speak with Dr. Gerald Auger, who holds a PhD in security, is a well-known CISO. He's also the Director of Education at ThreatGen, and he's the founder of Simply Cyber. He hosts a daily live stream reviewing tech news and offers a complete and innovative masterclass for GRC. For those who don't know what GRC or recall what GRC stands for, it means careers in governance, risk, and compliance. We have a really interesting conversation with Gerry, and it includes a live stream involved with direct questions from attendees. Also, it's really insightful. We discuss top best practices, security training methods, dangers of shadow IT, and GRC insight. We hope you enjoy this episode. It's an exclusive masterclass in security with expert Dr. Gerald Auger. This is Cybercrime Junkies, and I'm your host, David Morrow. And now the show. Lucky to work for a great group of people you really believe in?
Find yourself making an impact?
Technology is a river that flows through every aspect of an organization, and today is different. We put ourselves and our organizations literally at risk of complete destruction every single time we get online. One click, one distraction is all it takes. Hi, Cybercrime Junkies. This is your host, David Morrow, along with co-host Mark Mosher.
Come join us as we explore our research into these blockbuster true crime stories,
along with interviews of leaders who built and protect great brands. Welcome, everybody. David Morrow, host of Cybercrime Junkies. I am joined today by none other than Dr. Gerald Auger. Gerry, welcome, man. Really appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm super pumped. Like, what an awesome way to end a work week than, having a conversation about cybersecurity. I love it.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely fantastic. So for listeners, especially of our podcast that may not yet be familiar with you, but I'm sure will be huge fans and followers very soon, walk us through kind of what's your current role, and then tell us a little bit about your background, because you've got a very storied history here.
Oh, right. Well, thank you. I'll try to give you guys the nickel version, so to not drive you away. So my name is Gerald Auger. I have been working in the industry for about 20 years. I'm currently a CISO, so I've kind of, reached the top of the mountain, or what I thought was the top of the mountain. Careful if you get to the top. You might not like the look or the view from up here, but I've been working in the industry a very long time, and currently work at a company called ThreatGen, where I'm the CISO and Director of Cybersecurity Education. Love working there, small company, great mission. Also, I'm an adjunct faculty at the Citadel Military College, where I teach in their cyber sciences department, so trying to, shape, the minds of the youth. And then also, I am the Simply Cyber, where many people may recognize me from, the chief content creator at Simply Cyber. I do have a PhD in cyber operations from Dakota State University, and then a couple masters, computer science, information assurance. But one of the
You haven't really
underlying,
studied the topic yet.
yeah, I
You
might know
really
a thing or two about
you
it.
really
But
need to take a deeper dive into security, Gerry.
well, you know what, David? I'll tell you honestly, I tell people all the time, like the reason I love our field so much, like I have all this experience and all this education and stuff, and I still there's
Every
a million
day.
things I don't know how to do,
Every
right? There's
day. Isn't it true? I was just in a meeting just telling somebody about that. They're like, well, you study this stuff so much. I'm like, I meant like it's just the beginning. It's like trying to boil the ocean. Like you really just, the more you learn, the more you realize what you don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where these people, everybody gets imposter syndrome, like, oh, like, everybody else knows everything that I don't know. But I do want to point out, and this only occurred to me just recently, like in the last month, like if you look at my background, my history, and all of the different projects that I'm involved with today, there's an underlying theme underneath it around educating and delivering knowledge and value and into anyone who wants to hear about it. So Simply Cyber is very focused on that. But if you look at ThreatGen, Director of Cybersecurity Education, if you look at me teaching at the military college, it's all about any opportunity I can to have to share my passion, share my experience, share my knowledge with whoever wants to hear it. so they can benefit for themselves. David, you've been around a long time. Like, I feel I've made this analogy in the past, and hopefully it's not politically incorrect, but like, I feel like I've gone up and down the mountain a lot of times. And like when you go to Everest to climb the mountain, if you don't know what you're doing, you hire Sherpas to help you because they have gone up and down. They know the best paths. They know what to pack. They know what you should eat the night before.
Right.
I feel like, like an InfoSec Sherpa, like let me help you. Let me give you guidance and let's do this together.
We're not to step. Don't go down. Like, don't worry about, like, because especially in cybersecurity, you can go down so many rabbit holes. There are so many different details where you can spend hours or weeks and really go down, and some of it doesn't have that much impact on what your ultimate mission might be, right? And so you can kind of steer them to stay on task or on mission.
Exactly. And I mean, just to harken back to what we just said, you and I have been in the game a long time, and there's things that we know nothing about that's in our own industry. But if you're on the outside looking in, or you're just entering the industry, you don't understand the context that you don't need to be good at everything. And then, so you end up going literally an inch deep in a million different things, and you feel like you're making no progress, and you get frustrated. There's no reason for it, right? That you can circumvent that frustration if you just have a plan and someone to help guide you through that plan.
Yeah, phenomenal. So I've watched several of your Simply Cyber things that you do in the mornings.
Thank you.
Absolutely fantastic, man. I'm a huge fan. So you've done some on like tabletop exercises and some platforms. Walk me through some of your favorites and share with me kind of the benefit that practitioners can get out of those.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll tell you too, because there's really two, everything I do kind of has a very specific focus and purpose, right? So for the morning daily cyber threat briefings, which if anyone's interested, if you go to this link right here, there'll be a thing here, like come join us every morning. The morning threat briefings, as a practitioner, as a CISO, like I need to know what's going on. Literally, I was listening to these news briefings every morning by myself, drinking coffee, and thinking through, like, does this apply to me? Do I need to reach out to IT or whatever? And it just dawned on me, or I told someone, and they're like, why don't you share this with other people? And I was like, oh, like, would people be interested in that? And it turns out, yes, quite a bit, and it's really fun
because so many people, I think you tapped into something, you found a void, because so many people are doing the exact same thing. With cybersecurity, there's new exploits, there's 0-day, there's new breaches that are in the news, there's so much stuff, there's new potential solutions out there, there's so much happening, new laws that are being in Congress being passed, right? Like, how do you keep up with it? You need to touch base on a regular basis, and it's a great forum. It really is.
Well, thank you. Yeah. And to me, it's like a morning news broadcast, but because I very deliberately bring chat, which I see many of you from the Simply Cyber community here today on stream. So it's great to see y'all. I bring chat in intentionally so they can network with each other and openly discuss these things and ask questions and make it feel like an experience. And yes, I'm the one driving the show and I'm the one speaking my thoughts and analysis, but I do have, quite a bit of extensive experience to kind of share those thoughts. And if you don't have 20 years of experience, you may not have seen these things repeat. You may not have the context. And it's not always about the show or the story itself, right? So it might be, like somebody has like a terrible password that it resulted in a breach. But maybe that's a bigger discussion around why people use bad passwords, or about password vaults, or about passphrases, or how to educate your end users.
Great. Yeah. And did I see something? What was it that I saw last night? I read something where somebody had pizza 123 as their password across all the platforms. What was the group? I completely.
So my understanding was it was a disgruntled employee, or not a disgruntled employee, but an intern at at Fast Company.
Fast Company, that's right.
Yeah,
I didn't want to misstate it, so I wanted to make sure that's what I thought. I just knew you would know all about it.
Yeah, it was Fast Company, and now that I'm thinking about it, I'm confusing it. So the New York Post was hacked yesterday too. That was a intern who posted some stuff, but Fast Company, they were compromised with that terrible password. It was a WordPress password.
Right. That's what it was. That's right. Yep. Across all of their all it was across like 100 different aspects, wasn't it?
Yeah, like multiple Fast Company has multiple holdings, multiple WordPress sites. And I actually went into it today about, just this is a perfect example, David. Like, okay, so you can have AD and you can have group policy and you could push 50 character passwords across your organization and you can be like the end all be all Genghis Khan of InfoSec because you're so demanding. But that doesn't transition into application level passwords if they're not integrated into your AD backend. So you have to educate end users, because otherwise they're just going to set up a WordPress, maybe even as shadow IT, and not even tell you about it, and they're not going to configure it. So you have to connect to your end users. I'm like, this isn't even about the daily cyber threat briefing. I'm super passionate about security awareness and the importance of it, and a modern approach to security awareness that abandons the annual PowerPoint presentation that does nothing. You really have to explain to end users.
Let's pause there, because when I get somebody like you on, and you have obviously a billion people that like comment and talk, and I love it. I absolutely love it, because that's what this is all about, right? We're part of InfoGuard. Me and my team, we're part of InfoGuard. We've been training, we've created public services where we're out training people on cybersecurity awareness. We've been doing it for over 10 years. Now, one thing that we do, we'll use PowerPoint a little, but we make it not boring. We make it engaging. We make it interactive. We ask people questions. We have people stand up. We do things. We show some videos, some things from like Chris Hennigy, like a video, like things from DEF CON, stuff like that. What is your view of when you have seen cybersecurity awareness implemented at an organization and it's effective? I have in my mind what I think needs to be done, but tell me what your insight is on it.
Okay.
Because that annual PowerPoint or the annual kickoff or something like that is never going to change behavior. It's never going to modify culture.
No. And just to further emphasize the problems with that, like, people are taking that training the same time they're taking like workplace slip and fall training.
Exactly.
Like, and click. Right. Yeah. So you've got, first of all, there's many things. Like, I feel personally, and I feel like I'm a pretty humble person, but I will say that I feel like I have implemented effective cybersecurity programs in my programs I've built. Yeah. Couple things. First off, you have to remember that, like, Ann in finance and Todd in research, they don't care about information security. Like you and I, David, we could get super pumped up about 0 days and, Blue Keep and all these other things and high five each other, but they don't care. They're there to do their job and they want to go home, and maybe they get excited about like, new bar charts or something like that, but they don't care. So first of all, you got to check your ego at the door and be like, okay, like, what do they care about? Well, they probably care about their friends and family, and they care about their money. Oh, Okay, so why don't you
Exactly
take
right.
those things into context when you're delivering education? Also, think about the way that you consume knowledge or information, David. You're probably, there's a reason Twitter's like 280 characters, right? Like
Right.
you want short, digestible
Snippets,
bites. Yeah.
short parts. It's got to, and for me, it's got to be something that is ongoing, job embedded. It's got to be relevant to them. It's got to be something that's not just a one-off,
Mm-hmm.
right? But when we've done those trainings and we did them alongside like federal law enforcement for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and then I kind of like, okay, scaring the crap out of people is okay, but it's not really going to change their behavior. But then we took it and we implemented humor, and we just focus not on the scary stats. Yeah, they're in there, but what we focus on, and this is why I want to like, if you think it's wrong, I would like to. We'll change how we're doing it, because what we focus on mostly is why it matters, why they need to care about it, right? And that's what the focus is. Like they should care about for themselves, for their families, right? Because it'll help your department. It'll help like the organization's brand that you serve, and just being able to focus on why they should even care about it, and really just getting them to understand it's not an IT thing. It's not up to them. Like the brand can be damaged by Mrs. Buttermaker over in the third floor cubicle. She's the theoretical person I bring around with me who causes all the data breaches.
What do you call her, Mr. What?
Mrs. Buttermaker. She's
Okay,
really
Mrs.
good, great employee, well educated, really great employee, but she just is busy and she clicks on things. Right.
Well, it happens.
Or she'll throw that jump drive right in her PC with that.
Yeah, no, that's
she picked up in the kitchen area.
Yeah, that's Carl in our world. That's
is it
Carl in our
Carl?
world. Yeah, I even
like
have
it.
a sound effect for it. Anytime there's a story about someone who does that. Hold on, where is it? Carl! We just scream
excellent.
Carl. Yeah, it's awesome.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, he's a member of the community basically at this point.
Oh, maybe I think Adam just said it. He's like, maybe Mrs. Buttermaker is Carl's wife.
Oh, that is a good
There
point.
we
That
go.
could be. That
I
could
like
be.
that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and real quick, David, not to interrupt real quick, but just a programming note, mods, I have kicked those users out, so we're good to go. I've got it open on Studio over here. Okay, cool. We had some issues in chat there, David.
Oh, no worries. No worries.
So if I may, just another thing
to
touch
I
on.
hear your insight on it.
Yeah. So you did touch on some things, but it's really also making it relatable, but also consistency, right? And digestible, right? So I'm always an advocate of like, okay, once a week, send out a message of any kind, 2 sentences or less, make it relatable to them and make it current. Okay. Oh my God. Make it relatable and current. So you're like, okay, the IRS smishing thing, right? This just happened recently. So tell them like, hey, share this with your friends and loved ones about the IRS is not going to text you, but you may receive a text message from it, right? So by doing that, you're actually getting embedded kind of security champions in your environment. And another kind of benefit is that you start putting a face to the name cybersecurity, right? So then I've had multiple people reach out to me and say, hey, like I would never, I don't know if this is a thing or not, but Gerry, can you take a look? If I hadn't been in their inbox every week and been the face of InfoSec, then, maybe they're embarrassed or they're like, oh, it's probably nothing. But like you've opened a line of communication, you've made yourself accessible. And, sometimes it's nothing. Sometimes it's actually, I've had ransomware, like fortunately did not detonate correctly on someone's machine, but they were like, oh, it's really weird. Like, can you look at this? And I'm like, oh my God, like, yes, let me look at this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's huge. I find information security awareness to me is one of the top 3 controls that you can implement. Like the second I start a new job and I'm responsible, it's one of the first things I'm asking about.
Exactly. Yeah, well, it's one of the first things we'll go in, and even like the team of consultants that we do, we have services that will, eventually want to pitch or whatever, right? One of the first things we do is ask them how they're doing it, and we do this at no cost. And I'm just like, what are you doing? What's your model? How often are you doing it? Because if they're not doing it, we want to help them do it. Like we want it, whether they do it themselves, whatever, because it's just, it's changing behavior. It's changing, improving the culture, keeping security top of mind. It's tough.
Yeah,
it's tough, and it's where the biggest weakness is.
It really is, especially, zero trust or whatever. But like as we move to where cloud-based systems and people with user access and all these other things, like it happens. Plus, like scam baiters and stuff like that. Like you want to do as much as you can to get the knowledge out there. You just have to make it in a way that the people want to consume it, right? Yeah. Most people want to do the right thing. Right? Yeah. It's not like everybody's an insider threat. It's like most people want to do the right thing. They just don't know. And if you're talking to them about 0 days and lead hacksaw stuff, they don't understand what you're saying to them. And so they tune out. I mean, like perfect example, like if I may pivot, you asked me about tabletop exercises.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to circle back to that.
Yeah, so just to pivot, like before we drill into tabletop exercises and why they're important and all that, just think about it. If you have ever run a tabletop exercise, people in chat, if you've run a tabletop exercise, you've been a participant in one, you start talking about like, oh, like you've got ransomware and like like the lock bits on the network and, like sweet backups and all this. And like you look over and like CFO is just like, you know what I mean? It's like they are so checked out because they don't care about the bits and bytes and the zeros and the ones. So like
they're thinking literally, because I've talked to them millions of times, right? Like as you have, they're like, what is this going to cost me? Is it going to interrupt this production? Will we have to report it? Like, exactly. It boils down to those three things. And
which is why when you do a tabletop, if you just like slap out a tabletop, it's going to fail. Like you really need to plan who's going to be there. What do you need to engage with them? What's the scenario look like? But for the CFO that we just talked about, right? Like, okay, what's the threshold? Like we get hit for a $300,000 ransom note. Are we paying that? Is that okay? $1 million. What's the threshold where we have to bring in other people? You know what I mean? Like it's a financial number though, right? It is a cost. How long can we be down? Bring in the ops director. Like how long can we be down? Bring in the CEO. Do you want to like make this public? Do you want to tell the public people? Like,
are you aware, because you're so involved and you're involved in one organization and you're involved in working with all these amazing people that are doing this every day. But are you aware that like my team, we talk to different companies like between them, hundreds of them each month. They have not thought of this stuff.
Yeah.
It is so common. It's so scary. They have not thought, well, what would we pay in a ransom? They still have the belief, well, they're not going to target us. We're in Kansas.
Yeah.
Right? We're just a rural hospital in Kansas. You're a hospital. Like they're going to target you. They've been doing it for years. They're probably inside. Let's just take a look and we'll find what they've encrypted so far. Like they're like, they don't believe it. And like, holy cow,
I agree
from the beginning. Sometimes.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And sadly, there is this like, there's a bunch of things to kind of unpack here, David. It's like, cultural. First of all, it's cultural. Yeah. Even if you get them over the hump that like, you get them through the idea that I'm too small. Like you get them to accept that it can happen to you and that your industry is being targeted and we're all on the same internet and like, crap happens. Like Carl and Miss Binkins, what was it? Miss what?
Buttermaker. Miss
Buttermaker works at your company, right? Yeah. Like, so these things can happen. So once you get them over that hump, then you start struggling with compliance and security. Like, oh, we're compliant. Like, doesn't that mean we're secure? And they think that because why wouldn't they? This is a standard. You've adhered to it, which, by the way, like no one gets full compliance. But let's just assume.
You know that. Right.
So you're still at risk, but you're trying to make the argument that like you need to invest more, or you need to do it differently because checkbox compliance isn't going to work. And the tabletop exercise, as you just alluded to, very, very important. But the people who are designing them, with all due respect, right? All the love and respect in my heart, it's whoever's on staff, right? And like, if they don't have experience doing real tabletops or they didn't do the research, they're just like, oh, let's pretend. I've seen this one so many times, it makes me nauseous. Okay, ransomware incident. okay, so the box gets ransomware, and then the IT guy's like, we restore from backups. Are we done? Are we done? And it's
Are
like,
we done?
You know what I mean? And
Are
it's
we
like,
done with the exercise? We'll
yeah.
just restore from backups. Like, okay.
Yeah. So you know, like, so management's like annoyed that they even.
That.
Yeah, management's annoyed that they're even there. The CFO is wondering why they catered the event. You know, IT's annoyed, right? Right.
So that's exactly right. It's exactly what they'll say. It's exactly right.
But so if you do them correctly, though, you already have follow-up, you know, answers to that and all of those things. So, but even though that little crappy event that nobody had a good experience at that we just talked about, that checks the box. You can tell the insurance company, yep, we did it. Now, one other thing that I am huge on, and this is not an original idea. Jeremiah Grossman came up with this. I think in 2016, I saw a talk at Black Hat where he said, or 2015, he said, insurance companies are going to drive information security programs in the next 5 years. And I came back spouting that evangelically, and people looked at me like I was an idiot or like, who cares about cyber insurance? Suck it. Well, guess what, David? It's 2022. Yeah. People need cyber insurance now. Like it's part of the CEO cyber starter kit.
Right. Exactly. And in light of the last 4 to 6 months, it just got a lot harder to get.
Harder to get and way more expensive. And the insurance companies are saying, what are you doing for EDR? What are you doing for business continuity? What are you doing for awareness training? Do you have MFA? I'm not going to name names, but I know companies that are like, didn't have MFA. And that was an immediate, like we're done talking to you. Like, you're not going to get we're not going to write you a policy. Are you nuts? You absolutely are going to get hacked.
Right. So, well, and then there's like Travelers versus ICF, right? Which is they filled out the application. They said, yeah, we have MFA. But they had it on one firewall, right? And they got ransomware on like 2 or 3 servers. And so then Travelers was like, rescind the whole policy. They're like, when you say you have MFA, we mean it on everything.
Yeah.
And it's just, and so there's still, we had somebody on who's an insurance industry expert, and they were saying, look, you've got to explain what you have, and then you just fill out an addendum, right? You just go through and you list, like, we have it, but we only have it on here. And what he said, what some carriers will do today is give you partial coverage, or just not write you at all. But it's better to not even get it and to just do the project and install MFA on everything and then get it, right? Because that's what they need to do.
Right. So if you can get it.
Do you think that in the industry is, so do you believe that still? Do you believe that the insurance industry is driving what the basic standards are?
Yeah. Yes. I mean, to a degree. So because certain industries don't have
enough, is it?
No, it's definitely not enough. But because certain industries don't have compliance requirements, so there's no regulations on them, right? So like higher ed, for example, right? There's no standard, there's no minimum that they have to comply to. So now they're just trying. Well, with the insurance policies, at least it's kind of addressing a gap, essentially. Like, the insurance companies will tell you, here's what you need to do. I mean, it's not a regulatory standard or compliance standard, but they will say MFA and, awareness training and stuff like that. So you at least get, base minimum stuff to go implement. Of course, you have to have the staff to implement it, and unfortunately, I mean, if you outsource InfoSec, you could do that. But unfortunately, what a lot of people like KevTech IT support knows, you just dump it on your IT staff, and they're expected to know, which is another massive industry issue. I'm an InfoSec practitioner, right? I have a computer science background, but I don't work in IT. And a lot of people think that InfoSec and IT are the same thing, and it couldn't be further from the truth.
That's exactly
not even close.
No, that's exactly what we see when we talk to businesses. They're like, well, I have my small MSP that is, monitoring my network, and I'm good. They say that we're secure. They send an email out every Tuesday.
If that's not the kiss of death right there.
With tech tips. And I'm like, 6 months, your brand will be gone. Like, you want to talk or what? Like, it's so true. It's so true.
So And if I just one last thing on tabletop, if I may.
Hear.
So I saw a couple people in chat talking about me doing a live tabletop or something like that. The company I work for, ThreatGen, like you can do a tabletop multiple different ways, right? You can, but just at a high level, you do have to plan it, right? And we've already covered on this stream why you plan it. But you should have like a project kickoff or a tabletop kickoff. Here's the players. Here's what we're doing. Here's the scenario. Then do the tabletop. And that's like Dungeon Master, Dungeons and Dragons, storytelling and injects and stuff like that. And then you need a hot wash, like a meeting afterwards where you talk about what went well, what went wrong, and actually taking action items and then following up on those action items. At the middle part, doing that thing, that can be kind of challenging. And one of the cool things, and the only reason I bring it up, it's not so much to pump ThreatGen, although, hey, check out ThreatGen. On stream last Wednesday or 2 Wednesdays ago, we actually ran a live tabletop exercise.
That's the one I saw. I watched it. Yeah, it was really good. It was interesting.
It's awesome. And the cool thing about the platform is that it runs an active adversary AI on the back end. So like you don't have to make up the story. The story's literally unfolding in front of you, and all you're doing is like pausing and being like, oh, like in this particular instance, because it'll change every time, the file server just got ransomware. Like, okay, guys, like for our organization, what does it mean if the file server is ransomware? Like, what does it mean? Like like Mark, you work in research. Do you use the file server? Yes or no?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like you can ask real questions.
What does it mean in business sense?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
exactly.
What does it actually mean? What does it mean to the CFO? What does it mean to Mrs. Buttermaker? What does it actually mean? Right?
Exactly. And if there are real problems because of that, like Mark is down, that like we keep the blueprints on the file server, so now the manufacturing line goes down until we get it back up. And like Todd, who said, oh, we restore from backup. Okay, Todd, like what's the process? Where are the backups? When was the last time you checked the backups? How do you know it's going to work?
Yeah, I was just going to say, and if you give it hit with Lockbit back in the day with our evil, you're not going to be able to restore from backup, right? Because they're going to wipe the backup before they launch it.
Exactly. And let's just say you had some next gen solution that had like a immutable backup thing. So that's not the case. Okay, like here's what I want. Todd, be quiet. Junior analyst, how do you restore the backups? Because Todd's in Cancun right now. Tell me how you do it. Exactly. Oh, you don't know? Like you really, I mean, you don't need to be a senior practitioner to execute a tabletop exercise well, but you do need to plan it out. It's like it's so funny because I'm getting like wicked amped up about this, but I haven't really thought about how poorly they are executed and why they're so ineffective, but they're so important when done well.
They really are. And I think one of the things that made me so excited about getting to talk to you is when I saw that tabletop exercise. And I looked at that, and what I was thinking is the platform, the model doing it is so invaluable. It's something that should be done regularly. But what I thought of is compliance, checking the box versus people that care. Because that's what I see just in the security conversations in general, like penetration testing. We've got a whole team of ethical hackers, offensive red team that'll go in and do that, right? Okay, great. But whether clients benefit from it depends on whether you're just there because they have to do it. And they want to just check a box. Okay, we did it. Yeah, we don't care about the result.
We're done.
They don't care about being exposed. They just have to go through the process to be able to check the box. Versus, I want to know because I'm losing sleep at night. I've spent 25 years building this brand. My brand is at risk, and I know it. I just don't know where. Show me where, so that I can fix it, so I can sleep a little better at night. I mean, and to me, that is the issue with the difference between a great, successful tabletop exercise and not. Meaning, if you have people that care, that want to take those actions afterward, do the debrief after, and then take action after that, that's a great tabletop exercise. Because then you've found a client that cares.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
It is. And sadly, this is another kind of, just like security awareness needs to be a behavior modifier. You can't stroke a check for this. You can't buy an appliance and install it. The organization's tone at the top needs to be in on cybersecurity. Like it's very difficult to explain in words, But if the tone at the top doesn't really care, then it'll trickle down and there won't be accountability. So you take these action items and then 3 months later, you're like, where are we with these action items? And they're like, well, a project became a higher priority, so we did that. Like, oh, right. And
how many times do you hear that?
Right, exactly. And then you just do the tabletop the next year, which is way too long for a tabletop.
Way too long. Right.
But you do it and you have the same problems, and you're like, oh yeah, this is the same thing we had last year. Like, we should definitely do something about it. Like, how are we on those Q4 numbers? Like, let's push the product to Europe. Like, it's all about revenue. And obviously that's a philosophical shortcoming of information security. Is like, the better we're doing, the less it looks like we're accomplishing because things aren't happening.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, when it's done right, you don't hear from anybody. That's
exactly.
The whole point. Yeah.
No, I believe that it does come from leadership, because if they don't buy into the message and it doesn't resonate with them, it won't resonate with anybody else in the organization, right? Yeah. It just doesn't work unless you have that executive leadership buy-in.
Yeah, you look up to see what's important, right? You want to align with what's important to the organization, and if they're saying it's this over here or that over there, then that's what you're going to focus on, because you're, like, everybody's trying to do a good job, and who decides if your job is being done good or not? It's your management, right? So
exactly. Yep.
So tell me about your masterclass.
Oh yeah, thanks for asking about that. So this is kind of funny, like the background of this, and Simply Cyber folks, I don't know if you all know the history, the genesis of this. So I've been doing Simply Cyber for almost 3 years now, right? And you get asked a lot of the questions, and that's kind of what I'm here for, is to answer questions and help people along their way. And hey, where do I get blue team training? Hey, where do I get red training? There's very concrete, good answers. I came up GRC, right? So I went audit to risk. I've done blue stuff because, understaffed teams, you have to jump in there. But yeah, I came up a true GRC path. So I feel like, legitimately I am an expert in GRC. Okay. So I would get asked, Gerry, you know so much about GRC. Where do I get training? And I would tell them, there isn't really any good option. NIST 837 is probably your best bet. And I felt horrible, because you're telling these people who are trying to break in to go read like a 300-page government published document.
Yeah, but nothing more exciting than that.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So but it was the right answer, and I felt bad about it. And after getting asked the question probably five or six times over the course of 6 months, I just felt so bad about the answer that I was like, you know what? I'm just going to make a course, make it comprehensive, and that will be my answer. And so, I made this course, and you guys can, like, someone drop a link in chat if you would, please.
Yeah, and for the podcast, because we'll mix this later, and then we'll have links to all of your stuff in the show notes.
Right, everything will be in the show notes.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So go to the show notes and check it out. But basically, I was like, I want this to be a one-stop shop, and that's why it's called the GRC Analyst Masterclass, because here's the grouping of it. And if anyone's worked in GRC, you'll know that I covered it all. So I assume nothing, no prerequisites, right? So the first section is like a primer on technology, a primer on where GRC fits into an information security program, what an information security program looks like, what threat modeling is, like, so you can understand threats, what attackers look like. So, APTs, criminal-minded, hacktivists, revenge, script kiddies, right? So now we've got some terminology, right? We understand some basic principles that we can now build on top of in order to actually, like, learn. So then I break it up and say, okay, we're going to do something on compliance, a whole section on compliance, a whole section on governance, a whole section on awareness training, a whole section on risk, and a whole section on, policies in the governance piece. And one thing that I do in this course, so I cover every function of GRC. Another thing that I do in the course that I think is pretty awesome for GRC is that I have lecture, and then I have a lab. So labs are easy in pen testing, because, like, here's a box, pop it. In GRC, it's like a clipboard and an Excel spreadsheet. Like, how do you make labs for this? But I made labs that I think are cool for each section. So now you learn, then you apply.
And then you apply. And the application of it is really where the rubber meets the road. Like,
exactly.
That's where it gets good.
And then at the end of each section, I actually put resume bullets that you can copy and paste directly into your resume from what you've just done. And then the final section is like, okay, I've given you all these skills, like, great job. Now let's get you a job. So like, I actually have 6 lectures on how to, start, like, LinkedIn resume, how to interview, like,
Oh, that's exactly. I have a whole bunch of questions here. You just answered them. So that's really good, because I was curious, are you helping people on their presence on LinkedIn? Because I'm telling you, in no other industry, I've been on LinkedIn for 11 years, in no other industry than security is LinkedIn a very, very valuable tool. I mean, it'll not only lead you to getting a job, but it'll help you be better at your job. Like, there's so many resources right there. I mean, it's just, you connect with the people, where the events are at. Like, you can connect with the people that are at the events. If you can't make it, it's phenomenal. There's a lot of, it's just a great water cooler to check in daily.
It is a lot of community. And another thing that I tell people, like, obviously you should, when you're going to hire someone, right, or someone's coming in for an interview, let's be real. Like, one of the first things you do is look them up on LinkedIn.
You go look at their LinkedIn profile, right?
Every client we meet with, we go in and then we leave and we look and we're like, yep, they were looking at us, like, every single time.
Yeah, it's human nature. It's intel. Yeah. Like, people like having information. It makes you more informed on your decision making. So LinkedIn, absolutely huge. And I would say, like, Discord servers as well, like, but LinkedIn's very important. I would say Discord servers as well. And the reason I'm mentioning both of those is because if you guys don't know about this, if you're listening to this podcast and you're trying to break into the industry, or you're trying to get another job in the industry and you're having a tough time, networking is unbelievably important. I would argue with you, like, I would stand pat that 50%, as high as 50% of all jobs that someone gets in cybersecurity was never published. And if it was published, it was probably already filled, and they had to publish it for HR requirements and all this other stuff. Yeah. But like, that's how much networking is important. And what I always tell people is, like, listen, in information security, the industry moves really fast, and you've got, like, it moves fast. And if I know someone like Aniza Redmond right there, so Aniza's in Discord, or we're chatting on LinkedIn. I know she's got GRC chops. She's looking to pivot, and I am looking for someone. I'm not going to be like, hey, does anyone know? Like, I know, because I've been networking with her. I might reach out and say, hey, Aniza, like, I've got this challenge. Here's what I'm looking to solve. Like, I've got this problem, this problem, this problem. I need someone to travel around to the 14 facilities and do security awareness training. So there's a lot of travel, but good company, great routes, decent compensation package. What do you think? Hey, Gerry, that sounds awesome. Let's do it. Okay, boom. I had a problem, and I solved it in one day. If I go through the process of HR and interviewing 35 people and winnowing them down and scheduling all these meetings and stuff, it's 5 months before I get any traction on anything. So being real, being human, what am I going to do? I'm going to go with the thing that solves my problem fastest. And I still got a great candidate. I still filled the job. That, they're happy, I'm happy, everyone's happy, right? So it's almost like it's not seedy, but it's just like an underground kind of job market, essentially, but it's through word of mouth and relationships.
I think it's the way jobs are usually always done. I mean, that's the way it had traditionally been done. People hire who they know and who they trust and who they believe can do the job, right? And getting to know somebody, we work all over the world, right? We work all over the place, and especially in light of the pandemic, we don't get together in person as much as we should, or as much as we used to. And so being able to communicate, I would love it if somebody can
I'm doing it.
Drop your link to the Discord channel, because great resources. What I love about Discord is you're able to, like, just share in just a really open communication way, all different types of mediums. So it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's cool. It's very, very, very inclusive, very supportive. And I would say, if you join a Discord server, because there's hundreds of cybersecurity Discord servers. If you join a Discord server and you get a bad vibe or a bad experience, just move on
Go
to the next one.
Next one.
Yeah.
Go to the next one. There's a million of them.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's good. Yeah. So that masterclass, I'm very, very proud of. I like once you get access to it, it's forever. I'm actually doing a kind of a major hall update. A lot of people have been asking me about this, but I'm doing a major hall update in December on 2 of the labs to make it so like you do the audit lab through a workbook, and then you use that. You have to complete that part because it will be used for the risk. Because essentially, like where are your gaps, and then what is the risk of those gaps? So I'm pretty pumped about that as well.
Oh, that's phenomenal.
Excellent. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, and we'll have links to those as well. So let me ask you, in your as people get into the field, right? How do you help guide them in terms of what niche to pick? Like, if they have a little bit of experience in red team, blue team, or analyst, but now they want to move up. How are you helping people develop?
Yeah, so I mean, it really depends. Obviously, right? Classic consultant answer. It depends on their background, what they want to do. So if they're new to the industry, it's like I always say, if you're new to the industry, or you've only kind of like myopically bent heads down on like I don't know, a firewall, or like you only did Microsoft Intune or something like that.
Right.
Like, okay, like why don't you go out and obviously you should have a technical background, not technical background. You should understand networking enough, and you should understand operating systems enough, right? Enough to be able to tell me like how 2 computers talk, and if malware gets installed on a computer, kind of what's happening, right? Okay, so that's a given. Like, I don't care what you're going to do in the industry, even if it's GRC, which isn't very technical. Like, you still need that piece to be successful. So you
need that fundamental foundation just to move anywhere, whatever direction it may be. You've got to have that foundation.
Exactly. Otherwise, you're not going to know what you're talking about, and you're not going to understand what you're not going to understand the education that's coming to you, because it's going to be like unmoored and just kind of floating around. So that's the first thing. The next thing I like to suggest to people is kind of like, if you don't know what kind of food you like, right? Say you go to a foreign country and you're like, I don't know if I like this food. Like, sample a little bit of everything, right? So do a try hack me, pop a box, see if that's satisfying. Do a blue team type thing, do a GRC analyst masterclass, like do these things, and see what resonates with you, first of all, right? So at least you get an idea. And at an early level, all of that information is going to help you. Even if you don't become a pen tester, having popped a box gives you context, like, oh, I've done it, I've seen it, I know what it feels like.
That's a phenomenal answer, because no matter what, once you find what you're passionate about, right? Once you find what gets you going, right?
You'll never work another day in your life.
Then you're going to get better at it, and then the money will come, right? Like whatever the niche is that you pick, the point is just by getting better and better at it, everything else is just incidental. You have the eye on your vision of where you want to go, and then everything else just pulls you there.
Right.
Really good.
Absolutely. And I will caveat it though a little bit, David, like a little small asterisk. Some people, like, one thing is that, like, yes, like say you love red team, right? Or pen testing, like, oh, like it's so satisfying to pop a box. You're up all night because you can't sleep because like you're just thinking about the next challenge, right? You do have to be real about, like, are you a single guy living in a flat with 5 people and your overhead is like $100 a month? Okay, you could probably do some bug bounties, get some skills, eventually land a job, because it's very competitive in that space, right? Or are you a father of 4 who's got mortgage due at the end? Like, yeah, I love red team, but there's a SOC analyst job open right here. I'll go take that. You know what I mean? So, yes, follow your passion, but I would argue, no matter where you go in the industry, this is another crazy cool thing about our industry. No matter where you go, you're always like 1 degree away from like anything else in our industry, right? So like,
it's so true,
right? Yeah, you're blue, you could easily go go red. You could become a detection engineer like overnight. Anyone can kind of slide into GRC if they've been in the industry, because they have all that context and knowledge. So that's I'm not trying to sell anyone on cybersecurity, but there's a lot of things going for cybersecurity right now.
Yes.
Yeah. No,
Absolutely.
that's absolutely phenomenal. Let's talk a little bit about the Wild West Hacker Fest. So
Yes.
you were just there.
Oh my God, yeah.
And he's already signed up to do the next one.
Yeah. They asked me before I left if I could commit to next year, and I did. So I guess reveal here. I don't think I've told the Simply Cyber community yet, but yeah, I'll be speaking at next year's Wild West Hackin' Fest. It's the best conference I've ever been to.
That's what I hear. We did not get there this year, but tell me, like, where was it located? Tell
right. So Wild West Hackin' Fest I think it's in its 5th or 6th year now. It is Black Hills Information Security's conference. John Strand is kind of the man behind Black Hills. Obviously, they're a big company now, but he's the tone and all that. It's in Deadwood, South Dakota, so it is a little bit of a haul to get to. But that's where John lives.
Very cool venue, though. It's a very cool venue.
Yeah, it's a very cool venue. It's a cool town too. Like it's a Wild West town, but they've got it really clean, like super clean. You're like 5 minutes from anything like super beautiful, like Devil's Spire or the Badlands or Calamity Jane, gravesite and stuff like that. So the venue is cool. The location is great. But the reason it was so good to me is several things. One, it's only about 750 people. So they intentionally don't want it to be huge, right? The town couldn't support it, frankly, right?
Exactly.
The town doubled while we were there. So it's supposed to be small, so it has more of an intimate feel. It was only 2 days, so it's not like long and belabored. For me personally, like Black Hat DEF CON has been my jam for years and years and years, and I love going to that conference. And it's just, I don't like Las Vegas. I'm not a big gambler. It's super expensive. And the number one thing that really bothers me about those conferences is that if you are standing here and you want to go to a talk, but it's across the street, which sounds not like a big deal, but in Las Vegas, across the street's 20 minutes.
Yeah, it is a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so like you might not even be able to go to it, or like you have to like really pick and choose, and it's not. And there's like tens of thousands of people there, so like you might not even run into people you want to run into. It becomes very
the lines are massive.
So Wild West Hackin' Fest, to contrast that, the venue's all in one spot, and even if it was just Deadwood, like you could easily get somewhere, but everything's in one spot. You can literally go from anywhere to anywhere in less than 5 minutes. And this is the best part. They did so many like little things that were really nice. So Deadwood is 1 hour from the nearest airport. Black Hills rented buses, and basically there was a bus leaving every 30 minutes all day on the day that most people would be arriving. And then on the morning or the day after the conference, buses going every hour to the airport. So like you didn't have to worry about that. And another nice thing, if you can wrap your head around this one, you get to the airport. It's a small, tiny airport, right? You can imagine Rapid City, South Dakota is not huge, right? Black Hills had like basically taken over like a section of the airport, and they had like a welcome banner, and they had coloring books and snacks and free drinks. And it was like, because if you get there and the bus just left, you're going to be sitting there for an hour, right? So they wanted it to be like not suck. Like, hey, come on over here, hang out, have fun, let's talk, meet people.
That's really great.
Yeah,
that's the way to have an event too. Phenomenal.
And then like great speakers, like lots of people, lots of networking. Like different people are going to have different experiences, but like Daniel Lowry from IT Pro TV, like he and I, he's been on my show before. We've talked like I was in line to get to. Oh, by the way, John Strand, like everybody at the conference got a steak dinner on Thursday night. Like literally, they brought a chuck wagon up and cooked like 700 sirloins. And you just
fantastic.
Yeah, so while I was in line, Daniel Lowry had finished his dinner, and he's like, hey Gerry, and he came over and he like walked through line, and like we talked and networked, and he's like, I'm going on IT Pro TV like in a couple weeks to hang out with them. So it was just everything about it felt as close to like comfortable and like almost like family. Like it just like.
What did you present on when you were there? Yeah. What
I spoke on GRC, of course, right?
I would hope so. But
so I spoke on GRC. The title of my talk was GRC: A Day in the Life. So I've given this education, but a lot of people don't understand what GRC people do, or like
Right.
Well, two things. One, people don't know what they do, or they have misconceptions about what we do. And then two, a lot of people, especially with me pushing it so much out into the community, people are like GRC curious. They're like, I think I like this. I don't know if I like it. I took your class. I get the skills, but I don't know if I want to do the job. So to me, I was trying to serve two audiences and kind of give some like real talk about like what is an actual day look like to an analyst in GRC. So that was my talk. It'll be available.
So for listeners of our show, that some of them might not even know what GRC stands for. Like, explain that and give us a snippet of basically what they do, what the role is.
Yeah, so GRC stands for Governance, Risk, and Compliance.
Right.
And it's, think of it this way. If you think about information security as a function of a business, you've got people blocking bad stuff from happening and making sure that, passwords are in place and that technology is configured right. That's all very technical and heads down and looking at the wire and stuff. But there's still a business there. So the GRC people's job is to interface with the business and to make that less, kind of abstract. It's to go talk to Mark or Mark's department about, like what kind of challenges they might experience or suffer. Or if you wanted to get a remote access solution, right? So you want to be able to remote in from home because you're like a super hard worker. Everybody loves the work you do and you want to work 7 days a week, but it's an hour drive every day to come into work. So you want to remote in. Well, let's have a conversation about what solutions are okay to use, or maybe we buy a enterprise solution, right? So this is in GRC. Also, the easy one is like the CISO, like the chief person over the information security office. They're responsible, or they're part of the GRC function because they talk to the business about getting money and about what risk is. And then, if you want to just take the three letters of it, governance is like how the organization takes cybersecurity, so policies and procedures. Compliance is if you have to comply with something, showing it to external bodies. And then risk is the big one. This is the real value add of a GRC analyst. We don't have infinite money to protect from all the things. So what is the worst thing? And my job is to tell you the worst thing so we can focus on it. Right.
That's brilliant. That's fantastic.
Yep.
That's outstanding. So as we begin to wrap up, when you see all of the news and you report on it every day, and you've got this great group here that is all in all these different organizations, and they chime in with what they're seeing, you have a good sense of things. What is keeping you up at night? Like, what are some of the things that are really concerning you? What are some of the newest threats, or some of the things that organizations and business owners really should be watching for?
Yeah. Okay. So, ransomware has obviously been around since 2017, like mainstream, but ransomware is kind of like an end state, right? So the threat actors still have to get in here and deploy their stuff and move laterally. I was just on a call yesterday, like a Recon InfoSec's Thursday defensive call, and Ryan Chapman was the special guest, and he actually brought up something that I guess I had been thinking of, but I had never really, consolidated into a single thought. But like, really, shadow IT really bothers me. Shadow IT is my biggest concern, and I know it's been around forever, but there are so many. Two things. One, there's so many. By
definition, I think it's the scariest thing, right? Like
it really is.
That's what it is. What it is it's the stuff that's not pre-approved.
Yeah, it's not pre-approved. You don't know about it, right? That's why it's called shadow. You don't know about it. People who are putting it in place typically have best intentions, but it's ill-conceived because they don't understand risk, or they don't. If they're not IT people, they don't understand really about proper configuration, default credentials being changed, these type of things. And you are deciding the risk posture for the organization that I'm being charged to protect by sticking a webcam on the network because you want to be able to see if the pizza delivery guy is here, because you don't want to walk down to the front door and not have them there. So shadow IT really bothers me. And to that subset of shadow IT, remote access solutions. So like your team viewers, VNC, LogMeIn, all of these. Like, so many vendors will be like, I have to remote in, like, and they'll hit the CFO in the pocketbook and they'll say, listen, I'll fly my engineer there. You're going to pay for flight, hotel, food, and the day of, work. So that's $4,000 per visit. By the way, we're the only authorized people who can work on that piece of machinery. So we're going to be coming quarterly, 16 grand, or for $200, we'll sign this little contract and we'll just remote in, no big deal. No CFO, it's not even going to get to you as the CISO. Like, you're never going to hear that.
It. Yeah.
So
you won't even see it.
But now I've got all these remote access points into my environment. I don't have visibility over it. All of them run over 443, so it's hiding in the web traffic, so you're not even seeing it as like, oh, this is anomalous. What is this? Right. But when those things get popped, you don't know, especially if it's like, supply chain is kind of turning into a big story right now. But like, if Siemens has built their own custom solution that happens to use a remote access solution that they borrowed from GitHub, I don't know that. There's no software bill of materials for me to know that that's the thing, and I don't know that Log4j is running on it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Exactly.
like that gives me anxiety because I'm a control freak. I don't know if you got this. I mean, I'm super passionate about cybersecurity, but I am like super type A, like super, let me drive, okay? Like, I'm a terrible flyer because of that. I don't even know how to fly a plane. And, but that's
pretty sure you'd probably give it a try though.
Yeah. But that's a risk I can't control in any capacity. I can educate the crap out of end users. I can explain to them the risk, but they're going to hire new people get hired the next day, and vendors are going to come in with new product the next week. So it's just, it's an ongoing battle, which is fine because that's the job. But it's like there's always going to be this sliver of like exposure that I just can't control. That's inside my internal network, right? Like, I could deal with external, threat exposure. Like, we can all deal with that. But, oh, God. Like, you're getting me all ramped up, David. There's been multiple times this conversation where I've just gotten frothy. Tabletop exercises and remote access shadow IT. Like,
there we go.
My desk.
There we go.
That's exactly right. Hey, Gerry Auger, thank you so much. This has been absolutely wonderful. Thanks for everybody that's participated in the chat as well. We really, really appreciate it. We will have all of the links in the show notes when we post this on the Cybercrime Junkies podcast episode. And this will not be the last time we speak. And
No.
where can people catch you? They can catch you every single morning on LinkedIn Live, can't they?
Yeah. So every single weekday morning, I do take.
That's what I meant. Not Saturdays and Sundays. Sorry.
Yeah. So Monday through Friday, I stream to YouTube on the Simply Cyber channel, LinkedIn Live, Twitter, and Twitch. I did see someone in here coming from the Twitch channel. So I push to all those platforms. But if you just go to LinkedIn to the Gerald Auger account, any morning, it's 8 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10 a.m. Tuesday and Thursday. Although it's normally 8 a.m. every day, but when I teach, so when school's in session, I teach an 8 a.m. course at the Citadel, so I can't do the show and teach at the same time. So normally 8 a.m., but if you just go to simplycyber.io/streams.
Simplycyber.io, and we'll have links to that, but that's right on YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. And I would argue that, like, yes, LinkedIn Live is a lot of fun, but the YouTube experience is better.
All of the content. It's got
and like, we have like, so it's not inside jokes, but the community is huge. There's hundreds of people every day showing up, and we have inside jokes, we have emotes, and like we're happy to share them all with you. But like, we just have all sorts of like fun stuff that can be done on the YouTube platform. You're going to get the same information, the same knowledge share on LinkedIn as you will YouTube, but the networking and the fun is a little bit higher on the YouTube platform. So I would really encourage people to head over and check that out.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Well, Gerry, thank you so much, man. Have a great weekend, and we will talk again soon.
Thank
you very much. Thank you. My pleasure.
Everyone. We'll see you. Hi, Cybercrime Junkies. Thanks for listening.
Got a question you want us to address on an episode? Reach out to us at cybercrimejunkies.com. We explore why cybercrime grows daily, how it is funded, productized, and organized, how to protect yourself, and where cybercrime goes to hide. And thanks for being a cybercrime junkie.